This is Mr. Reed's Year 7 maths homework for week 9. You'll notice up at the top there it tells you that the deadline is the Friday. That's the third strike for this homework, and actually I've had a couple of students in the class that just fell into bad habits with homework towards the end of the last half term. So if you can make sure that you try the homework early in the week, come and see me if you're stuck, and make sure it's all done, every question for that final deadline, and I will check it through the week, but this is your final deadline here. Question 1. Rounding these numbers to 2 decimal places, remember to write them down and then an equals sign and then the answer. Then you can correct them when we do purple pen work later in the week. And actually that applies to every question. You need to write enough down that you can correct this, because obviously you don't have a sheet with this homework on. It's on YouTube, so you do need to write the questions down. Question 2. Estimate. We've done this time and time again for homework. One significant figure, estimation on all the numbers, write them down, then estimate them, then calculate at the end. On to question 3. Now calculation's completely different to estimate. This is literally a calculation. No rounding allowed. One thing I would say is, if you remember the way we do this, we turn this into 12/10ths and we multiply decimals using fractions. You can do the same here and so on. Remember MrReedMaths at all times. For example, we'll do your powers there before you multiply by 100. On this one here, you'll do this division before you subtract whatever this turns into. So there's lots of care required regards MrReedMaths. To question 4. Appropriate units. Now, some of you, when working on this topic, don't know the difference between estimating a numerical answer and which unit to use. So, for example, on this first question, the mass of a football, some of you might think, oh, I'll guess a number of grams or something. The actual numerical number of grams is irrelevant. All I want is grams is possibly a sensible unit for the mass of a football. Now it does say select an appropriate unit, and it doesn't say whether it's metric or imperial. Now we're supposed to use metric units, so I'm assuming you'll be writing down a metric for each of these. And I have said, for example, you might want to use grams for this one, but there are other potential choices you could go with. Right, same for all of the questions on this page, a metric unit that would be a sensible one to use in that situation. A good example here would be a snail and a train. You're not going to use the same units because the snail goes a lot slower than a train. So think about how you might factor that in when deciding what units to use. Question 5. Calculations. Again, now there are a few people that have said they're not sure what cross-simplify means, so I will give an example here. I'm not going to do all the homework for you, but cross-simplifying is where you try and make the question easier before you begin. So on this first question, question A, you might think to yourself, well, to multiply fractions you multiply the numerators, 27 times 120, and you multiply the denominators, 60 times 27. But that's actually hard work. I'm not doing that. What I'll do instead is I'll spot diagonally that there's a 27 here, there's a 127 there, and there's a 1 there, and you can get rid of them. And now I haven't finished, but you could just do 1 times 120 and 60 times 1 and then go from there. But actually, there is another cross-cancelling that can be done. I'll just show you here. This one divides by 60, and so does this. So it's possible to replace this 120. Just get my pen. 120. There are 2 60s there. There's 160 down there. And then the rest's up to you. Multiply the tops, write it down. Multiply the bottoms, write it down, and just simplify your answer. And this page is all about that skill. So I need to see you cross-simplifying before you then calculate the answer. That's a very important skill to save time in exams. Let's move along to the next page of questions. Top cat time. Top cat will appear on worksheets and homework when there's some sort of problem-solving element, some sort of real-world problem to be solved. In this case, often my questions are about a garden, and that isn't because I like gardening. Actually, I'm not a big fan of gardening, but it's a good opportunity to do some maths in a situation that you might see someone doing in the real world. So in this case, we've got a triangular garden, and we're going to cover it with soil. You've been given some information about the soil, how much it costs, how much a bag of soil will cover, and so on. The question is, will £80 be enough to do that job? One thing to point out is take care with the units. Check out the measurement along the bottom of this triangular garden and this one here. There is a mix of units, so you need to be careful. That's also true here. On question 7, I've deliberately mixed the units up, and if I didn't point that out to you, quite a lot of you are not noticing that, so you're not reading questions carefully enough. Look out for a mix of units. And there's also another thing to say. on question 7, and that is the little marks on this triangle do mean something, and these diagrams are not to scale. It says they're not drawn accurately. So the fact that this looks longer than this is not relevant, because these little lines mean something very important. On to the next page. And actually, that's it. So if we just go back, that is the end of the homework. Question 7. As usual, if you can come and see me before the deadline, it will be helpful, rather than missing questions out and getting stuck and then leaving gaps. I think it would be much better if you think back to this first page and the fact that you've got 3 strikes. That Friday deadline is the final deadline, isn't it? So please come and see me before that if there's a problem and you're stuck. Okay?